The following program contains subject matter and language that might be disturbing to some moving to the cloud decision makers that have bought into the marketing hype that cloud will solve all your business needs. Viewer discretion advised. And now, from within Client Studios, it's the Jody and Steve Show.
So Jody, you talked about the message of the cloud being tied to a marketing effort. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that if you think about marketing, right, there's two key components. What's the message and who's the message delivered at? If you tie that to the trends that we've seen in the past, like VDI, I mentioned before, VDI was marketed to the IT community. It wasn't really marketed to consumers. It was too complex for really that comprehension. But if you look at cloud marketing, it's entirely different. They are marketing, the message is, number one, it's extremely powerful and enables your business to really have unlimited potential. And they're right about that. That's accurate. But who the message is directed at is herein lies the problem. That message is directed at the consumer level. It's directed at non-technology focused people. Right. And the gap within organizations is still, it's getting closer, but with regards to IT, the gap in organizations is still vast between business executives and IT executives.
And technology people. It's sort of like the consumerization of IT on steroids.
Exactly.
Like we saw that everyone can relate to a smartphone and an iPad and how that makes you productive. And now let's focus that at the data center.
Yeah, and it's that message inherently for people is simplicity. They're not saying that necessarily, but I was a CIO of a physicians network, right? Great example. Had 150 doctors that came to me on a regular basis and said, hey, I can get my home network up in a second and not have any problems.
Exactly.
Have this great performance.
Right,
Why can't you do this here? It's the same concept.
Yeah, it really is. Interesting. Well, I saw this coming, and actually it was through some of our deep discussions about 2 years ago that really gave me the momentum to jump into the cloud and really learn it. When I want to learn something, I jump in whole hog. So I took a giant pitcher of cloud Kool-Aid, and I mixed it up and drank the whole thing. I took all my gear in our office and in our test lab and donated it to the rest of my crew as a lab at a data center and moved our production environment to Azure. And man, this has been a dive down the rabbit hole. I don't even know where to begin, but it's been this, you laughed, you cried, you laughed, you cried, you were afraid, you were happy. Big turns in the road. But the short version is that I bring to this 25 years of expertise in design, architecture, really making the business express what it is they want and turning it into solution. And I went with this okay, I got the marketing message. It's going to be a subscription. We're going to sign on and be able to do things. And honestly, it could be nothing further from the truth. So we talked about in the last segment, the defaults for building things are completely insecure and unmeasured, right? So the conclusion when you jump in and you run up your credit card and you waste a bunch of money and go, wait a minute, all my stuff's available from the outside, is you start over and you realize that the move to an Azure is actually a data center migration.
That's right.
It's just like a building that you have to start by putting in power and network. They've done the power, they've put a network in, but you have to define those networks. You have to define a security model. You have to provide a firewall. And the natural inclination for IT people is they expect that to be there.
Right.
So I thought, cloud, awesome, I subscribe. I'm going to have security and servers and backup. You don't get any of that.
Yep.
You get some resources and you got to build the rest.
When you look at cloud platforms, it's not a whole lot different in the marketing message even and the capabilities message. And what I mean by that is if you look back in the history of Exchange, Microsoft always intended true backup and recovery to be a part of a third-party tool outside of core components of Exchange, right? Well, they didn't change that methodology or that approach when they created Office 365. But inherently, because the message seems to be inherently simple, everyone assumes that Office 365 Mail and OneDrive is backed up.
Well, let me tell you the truth. It kind of pissed me off because as I went through this journey of studying, learning, testing, running my credit card up, learning how much it really costs, bringing some early customers on, It kind of made me angry because I felt like they were saying something that wasn't true. But that's maybe a little harsh. It sounds like really they're just implying it's easy because it's easy to buy.
Yeah.
It's easy to buy a subscription, take out your credit card, set up your bank account, and start buying.
That's right.
They didn't really lie. They just sort of didn't mention, what it's really going to take to be successful.
Yeah, it's like omissions, right?
Yeah.
Is it the same thing? I don't know. It depends on the situation. Maybe it's brilliant from a business perspective, right?
Yeah.
The message is inherently simple. They're not saying it's simple, but the reality is the power of that platform is incredible. It's something like we've never seen before, and what it can allow a business to do is absolutely incredible.
Right.
But we've got to be wise about how we approach it, and we've got to go in with eyes wide open. And eyes wide open means you still need to do all the things that you've always done. You need to take control of your own security. Great example of that is identity.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have a solid identity strategy today, and you're in a private on-prem data center, private cloud, you can mitigate that risk to a large degree with perimeter security. It's really no longer the fail-proof,
right.
But you can mitigate that. But if you take that same lack of strategy into a cloud platform,
You're
in trouble.
exposed.
You're absolutely exposed instantly.
And that's the thing I see is your instinct and training that you may have had for 10, 20, 30 years leads you to approach it in a way that's not ideal in the cloud. We come with assumptions. If you're a VMware guy or a Citrix guy, you assume there's a network. You assume there's subnets. You assume there's a firewall. You don't start at that point in the cloud. So you really have to bring it. You've also talked about, hey, you don't need any help and you'll be successful if funds are unlimited, you have unlimited time, and security's not a problem.
Right.
Besides that, it's like no problem.
Yep.
But it is the same things. And that was what kind of irked me as a consultant, is I went in with an open mind thinking, all right, the world's changing. Now I'm just going to guide my clients to the magic cloud. And when I got there, I found out it requires everything we've always been doing. You have to design the network, a security model, all the VM layouts, storage. And the worst part is the calculators they provide are not comprehensive.
Right.
So they aren't actually correct.
Right. Yeah, calculators are interesting, right? They can come to whatever conclusion you want them to create. And at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is market the ability to rapidly and inexpensively create infrastructure. Well, they provide a manual, to your point, that changes on a regular basis, but the base manual will give you all the information you need. But nobody does that anymore. It's many, many pages. It's lots and lots of reading.
It's way easier to click next.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's an interesting, things are changing very, very rapidly and will continue to change. But this is where I think, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think the younger generation is used to things being easier than they are. And I think that's where experience from consultants that have been doing this for a while, to your point, it's all the same disciplines. Applying it in a slightly different way really can enable an organization to take the best advantage of cloud, keep their cost to a minimum. Look, at the end of the day, nothing has changed in this respect. You have any project, time, cost, quality. Pick two.
Right, and give
You
it to it.
can't have the best of all three of those.
So we've talked about and identified some of the challenges and differences in adopting Microsoft Azure Cloud. Now in the next video, we're going to get into what you can do about it.